My name is Anna, and I'm from Ukraine. And I am happy to live in times when women president is very real. And women president in Ukraine is something we hope will happen in the next decades. But there are countries where women are invisible, and Russia is one of them. Can you tell me something about the first Russian ladies? I can, so watch the video. I like talking about the first ladies. I like reading their biographies. I even like some of our Ukrainian first ladies like Olena Zelenska or Maryna Poroshenko. Even in times of war in Ukraine, we organize a summit of first ladies and gentlemen, because being the first spouse of the country is being a political figure. But even if not, still, a wife or a husband of a president is an influential and important person. And when the place of the first lady or the first gentleman is continuously empty, it also tells us something. Look, who are they, Russian and Soviet first ladies? What do we know about them, and do we know them at all? As a Ukrainian, I will first introduce you to our first ladies throughout the history of modern Ukrainian independence. And yes, we know all of them, even the ones we wished not to know. So the first lady of the Ukraine, independent Ukraine, was Antonina Kravchuk. After her, everyone knew Liudmyla Kuchma, a wife of the second Ukrainian president. Then Kateryna Yushchenko, who was a wife of a very famous Ukrainian president who was poisoned, of course with the help of Russia, survived and gave Ukraine a chance for its European future. After him, we were ruled for a very short period of time by a figure of Yanukovych, who was organized special political operation from Kremlin, but we also knew his first lady, unfortunately, with all the things she spoke on public. But she was present and visible, Liudmyla Yanukovych. And after her, we are happy to know Maryna Poroshenko, the wife of Petro Poroshenko, former president of Ukraine, and many of you know and like, including me, our first lady Olena Zelenska, who started many important humanitarian, political, diplomatic and cultural initiatives even during these 2 very hard years of war. So these are visible, known, respected Ukrainian first ladies. If you like something dark and morbid, of course you can read a bit of Russian history and you'll see that Moscow Tsars loved sending their wives to monasteries against wives' will. But let's look closer at the modern era, starting from the USSR and ending with Putin. Ending with Putin is actually good. We know that the greatest communist leader, Lenin, had kind of friendship relationship with his wife Krupskaya. And we also know she was visible, and after the death of Lenin, she did not like what Stalin started doing and very likely was poisoned by Stalin. A national hero of dictator Putin and all of his population, Stalin was a real monster. We do not know much about his private life, but we know it was complicated and dark. His first Georgian wife, because Stalin is also Georgian, died really young, and his second wife committed suicide, which is not unusual taking into account who her husband was. So at 31, his wife, Alliluyeva Stalina, committed suicide. Russian historians like saying that she had severe headaches and that was the reason why she decided to shorten her life. But independent historians agree she was terrified with Stalin's terror, she could not escape, so she decided to die. Nikita Khrushchev, the great warrior of the Cold War, also had 2 wives. With the second one, he lived for almost 50 years before actually officially marrying him. His wife, Nina Khrushcheva, was okay. She was quite influential, worked with him, spoke a number of languages, but totally did not care about her image. And there are lots of photos that circulate global media during her meetings with Jackie Kennedy. I agree, appearance is not everything, but to some extent she reflects the attitude to beauty and style in all Soviet Union during that period. Then, for decades, we know nothing about the first ladies of Brezhnev, Andropov and Chernenko. They are simply invisible, and when husbands are asked about their wives, they say they are modest. I think modesty and invisibility are two totally different things. One of the most controversial figures in global modern history, and maybe a very hated person in Russia, where the collapse of Soviet Union is considered a geopolitical catastrophe, which is not. So the last president of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev, loved his wife Raisa dearly, and all Soviet Union hated her. Because Gorbachev demonstrated tenderness and she was very Western. She was quite stylish, quite visible, and even answered questions by herself. That's why the majority of Soviet communist women who were taught to be invisible and very similar to each other disliked the image of a totally different first Soviet lady. That's why they were not surprised when collapse of the Soviet Union happened, and Gorbachev, together with his wife Raisa, was blamed for that. Boris Yeltsin, the first president of independent Russian Federation, was very loud and very visible, especially when drunk on public events. But his wife was once again invisible and he never demonstrated his relations with her. Monster Putin was also married and divorced. At the very beginning, their private life was quite open and she did not like his FSB work. None of us do. But what is also interesting, when Putin became a president, she became extremely invisible. And the way they announced about their divorce is very weird. During a ballet intermission, they had a brief interview and she announced that Putin is very busy with his state work, that's why they will divorce. An unusual reason. What is even more unexpected, she did not join a monastery, but remarried. Liudmyla Putina married a 20 years younger businessman after the divorce with Vladimir. The wife of Medvedev, constantly drunk Russian President Medvedev, is also invisible, but we can definitely summarize that both Liudmyla Putina and Medvedeva have serious bank accounts, and they were mainly responsible in their family life for opening various offshore accounts. Well, I'm not speaking about Putin's lover Kabaeva in this video, first of all, because that's a serious video, and second, because she is not the first wife. But let me know, would you like a video like that? And as Belarus was silently annexed by Russia, and many people globally consider it to be a part of Russian Federation or a union state, as they call themselves, we have to look at the First Lady of Belarus. But there is no First Lady of Belarus, even though both Putin and Lukashenko like developing the image of machos. In Belarus we have something very different and quite unusual. The first son. Because President Lukashenko takes his youngest son, Kolinka, to every event, perhaps preparing him as a heir for a new Belarus-Russian country. Soviet and Russian leaders pretend to be global leaders. They like to create this image. But at the same time, the place of the First Lady in Russia is always empty, and these women are always invisible. Doesn't that tell us something? From my personal Ukrainian observations, I think that in a democratic country, the spouse of a president, prime minister, king or queen is always visible, because there are no mysteries and there is respect. And I'm happy to live in a country where women are influential and important. By the way, we have good video about Olena Zelenska that you can watch and learn more about her biography. Let me know what are the other topics you'd like to discuss in Discover Ukraine series. And thank you so much for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons. Remember to subscribe. And together we stand against evil. Slava Ukraini!